Fatherhood.
Alright, say, what's up, Flick Connection? This is Colin.
This is Nick.
Say, this is Colin.
This is Conan. I want my coffee.
Say, today we're going to talk about dads.
Talk about that.
Can you look at that? Say, hey everybody, this is Colin.
Hey, everyone. This is Conan.
So that was actually my son, Colin. I've been wanting to let him do an intro for a while. I thought this was a perfectly appropriate video. If you're a normal subscriber, watcher, don't worry, I'm not changing up the format of the show. We're still talking all about movies, constant movie recommendations every single week, but this is basically to introduce you to a new channel. I'm opening up the Darren Van Damme channel. It is basically going to be all the stuff I want to do that just doesn't fit right here on Flick Connection. It'll be content similar to what I'm talking about today, but it'll be cooking, it'll be other fun stuff. We're gonna get out from behind this desk often. It'll be one video a week at least, sometimes it'll be more. They'll go up at random. So if you're a fan of the show, definitely go over to the new channel, click subscribe. You will be one of the absolute first subscribers. But let's jump into some thoughts on fatherhood. Just for starters, I've got two kids. Colin, who you just saw, who is almost 2.5, and then Kylie, who is almost 12 weeks old, so coming up on 3 months. Very, very little, so I've got very limited experience, but I do have some thoughts I'd want to share with you, and this week seems like an appropriate week to do it. The big tip, piece of advice, if you're able, and most people really are able, if you really think about it, do not become a father until you really are ready. It is not something to go into lightly. Even if you're married, it's not something to go into lightly. You really need to wait. I waited until I was over 30. I think I was 31 when we first got pregnant. Perfect timing. Financially, me and my wife were both secure enough to have kids. We had done a lot of the stuff that we wanted to do before having kids, and then maturity wise we were ready, and because we were ready, we really took on the responsibility full force, and it didn't impede our lives like it would have if we were younger, and for the most part it just improves it. And I say for the most part because there are some downsides we'll get into, but really for the vast majority it is an improvement to my life, and we'll talk about some reasons why. Tip number 2, patience is paramount when you're a parent. I didn't mean to have that many P's in it. I'm not really a fan of talking that way, but you've got to be patient, and I am not a patient person. I'm very, I'll say, intolerant when it comes to bad drivers, rude people out in public. I've got a very short patience, and I've had to really work on that since having kids. You do have to think about things differently with kids. Yes, they are human beings, but they're not really people yet, and you can't really just treat them and have the same expectations as you would with a person. And so you just have to be completely patient, and you have to wait for things. You have to wait for them to make decisions. You have to wait for them to be ready to do certain things. You have to wait for them to walk from there to here. Things like that. You just have to accept the fact that you now have to be very patient. This kind of goes hand in hand, but it is a separate tip, and that's tip number 3 is you have to understand that they don't understand. That's really important. If you're a young dad, or you're about to become a dad, or maybe you're an older dad and you can just relate with this, but you really have to kind of look at young kids and really wrap your head around the fact that they don't understand what's going on. You can try to explain things, and I do that a lot. I try to explain, even though I know it's not all going through. You just have to have a clear understanding that they don't know what's going on, which means sometimes when it seems like they're acting out, or maybe misbehaving, or really starting to grate on your nerves, they're not doing it on purpose, not always, and they don't necessarily have the same, anywhere close to the same view that you do. They don't realize that being loud is disturbing other people in the room, or other people in the restaurant. So you have to take care of those things with the understanding that they don't understand. If you try to sort of talk to them like they understand things the way you do, you're just not going to get anywhere with it, and it's going to frustrate you, and then they're going to get frustrated, and it's just not going to work. When you talk to them as if they're someone that doesn't really understand something, yet still talk to them like a person, it seems to work much better for me. It gives you more patience in return, just having that understanding, and then it also kind of gives you the ability to sort of like whisper them in a way where you can sort of kind of figure out what's frustrating them or why they're doing what they're doing, and then you can relate to them much better once you sort of just wrap your head around that concept. Tip number 4, and this is for dads, moms can do it too, but this is really a tip for dads. Be rough with kids, have fun. Obviously don't hurt them, but roll around, play, toss them on the bed. Don't hurt them though, and let them sort of be rough back, and when they go a little bit too far and maybe they slap you or maybe get a finger a little too close or maybe all the way in your eye, correct them, correct that behavior. It's an important step in them learning kind of what hurts somebody, what doesn't. It helps them become more aware of their body. It makes them aware of how much more powerful you are than them without having to use corporal punishment. It's just sort of a fun way to sort of like communicate and interact. Obviously I'm not talking about doing that with babies, but with a 2-year-old, you can roll around with them and have fun, and even just the swinging and the lifting, all of that is good stuff and really helps them developmentally. I would say just don't be afraid to sort of like wrestle with your kids a little bit, especially you dads. Number 5, completely separate from the kids altogether, is you have to make time for yourself. So you have to make time to go out with your friends, whether that be date nights with the wife, date nights with other couples, or just a night out with the guys. You need to try to do that fairly regularly. I'd say a couple of times a month at least. Every week is probably impossible. It might be a little bit, you might be stepping out a little bit too much in my experience if you're getting it out every single week, but 2 or 3 times a month is a good healthy way to disconnect. Don't try not to talk about the kids while you're out. Try to enjoy yourself, enjoy time away from the family, and it'll make the time with them that much more enjoyable. If you never get a chance to disconnect, it can really make the day-to-day become more of a drudgery rather than something you really enjoy doing. Number 6, I'd say don't assume what their level of intellect is at any given age. With a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, I'll talk to them kind of however I want. I mean, obviously, kid appropriate talk, but I'll say things that I know are over their head just because you don't know how much of it's actually landing, and I think that that's really helped Colin at least maybe develop faster. He's definitely developing at a very good rate from what I can tell and what doctors have told us, and I think that that definitely plays a role in just communicating constantly talking, and not just talking to him like in super simple terms, talking to him a little bit above his head so that he tries and he cognitively sort of tries to catch up and reach that level, and that seems to work really well. And it's much more enjoyable for me to be able to talk to him in that way than to just be talking baby talk all the time. I don't see where that would really help him developmentally. Again, I needed to just stress that I'm not a child psychologist, I'm not a physician. These are just things that I've experienced, and hopefully some of this will help young dads or soon-to-be dads out there. And then for the rest of you, maybe you just get a little bit of insight into kind of how I approach dad life. Number 7 is a big one for us in this house, and that is keeping a tight schedule. Now, we don't keep a tight schedule where we got something written on the fridge and we're just go all day, but as far as bedtime, Colin is basically in the bath at the same time every night, give or take 10 minutes. That's about as wide a swing as we give it, and then in bed about the same time. 3 books, teeth brushed, the routine works. He goes to sleep really well. He wakes up really well. When you can get that down, he wakes up refreshed. He feels good. He has a better day. He's happier. You enjoy the time you're spending with him more. If he's not sleeping well, you get the opposite. You get a cranky little kid that doesn't want to cooperate, that doesn't want to do anything. It stresses you out. It makes you frustrated, and it just sort of it makes things really impossible. And I would imagine if that happens all the time, it would really make having kids be just a nightmare. Number 8, you probably hear this all the time, but be firm. When you say you're going to do something, you have to do it, and trust me, you will be tested on this, and you need to try to pass it. Basically, if you say one more time and we're doing a timeout, if they do it one more time, the timeout needs to occur. Basically things like that are what I mean by be firm. When you say something, do it. And that also kind of goes for, don't just impose things for no reason. Don't just say, hey, get down from there, or don't do that, because it kind of bugs you. If it's not something worth getting in timeout for, or worth getting punished if they don't listen to you, try not to bother. I'm bad about that, where I'll want to say, hey, just stop that. And I have to catch myself and say, is it really that big a deal, or is it just sort of bothering me? Is it fine that he does that? If it is, I'm not going to push it, because he doesn't know any better, and bringing a timeout into it could just confuse things worse. So try to do that, but when I don't want him to do something, he gets a timeout warning, he gets a 3 count, and we go to timeout. And this isn't one of my tips, this is just how I decided to handle timeouts, and this could easily change in a couple of weeks, but this is what I've been doing, is basically just sitting him in a chair. He's usually crying because he gets picked up and he knows he's going to timeout. Just encourage him to calm down. Give him just a minute to sort of like collect himself, calm down. Try to explain as succinctly as I can why he's in trouble. Say, what did you do, or what are you going to do next time, something like that. Get him to repeat it back to me. At that point, he says, I'm sorry, he hops down, gives me a hug, and we go back. That is really working very, very well for me. There are times where I almost, within 5 minutes, I have to do it again, and then the timeout's a little bit longer, and I'm a little more stern. He knows he's in more trouble. But since doing that second time, I've really only had to do it a handful of times, and he's really learned to listen to me on the first. So that has worked really fantastically. I don't even know where I learned that. It just, I don't know, it made sense to me, and it seems to be working. Number 9 is a big one, and it's kind of an obscure one. You have to kind of figure out what it means for you. But when you become a dad, or just a parent, I'm saying dad because I'm a dad. I want to speak from that perspective, and it's Father's Day week. But a lot of this applies to moms and dads. But when you become a dad, let it change you. Now that's going to mean different things for you based on who you are, but you do have to become a different person. Now it doesn't mean your personality has to change. It doesn't mean you have to really change who you are deep on the inside, but you're going to become a different type of person. Your lifestyle is going to change, and I'm not used to having to punish someone. I'm not used to having to do a lot of the things that I just listed out, but you need to let it change you, and it will improve you if you just let it. If you try to resist and try to be who you used to be 100%, those two things are not, it's incompatible in my experience. And just letting being a parent sort of change who you are a little bit, as much as it probably should or would naturally, it is a good thing. It should be a very positive thing, and it should really enhance your parenting experience. It should make being a parent more fun and enjoyable by letting it become part of your life. And number 10 is, I think, one of the biggest ones on the list. That's why I saved it for last. These are in no particular order, but this one really, I think, is really important. And it's and this is way advanced for me. This is not really that important at this juncture in my life, but it's on my mind all the time. And that's to make sure they have every chance to do at least a little better than you. And I mean that like in a financial sense. I mean that just in a well-being sense. Give them every single opportunity you can to allow them to become a better person and to be more successful than you. Now they may or may not do it. One thing you have to do, I think, and I'm not grooming my son for this, this will be when he gets older, but one thing I think you absolutely have to do is teach him this principle that it's their job to do a little bit better than you at the very least. That's what you expect of them. And it's your job, they need to know it's your job to make sure they have everything they need to do that, and that you're going to do that. To me, if everybody did this, just imagine, if everyone had been doing this for the last couple of 100 years, just imagine how amazing the world would be. Everyone just did a little bit better than their parents. In almost every sense of the word, things would just be amazing. We wouldn't have shitty people anymore. We would have got rid of them all. I guess we still would, but the shittiest people we have in the world would be way better than the shittiest ones we have right now. So I think that's really important. I think that's how, I don't know, that just seems to be the goal. That seems to be what you should do. Not if you were a plumber, your kid needs to become a lawyer. I mean, if they want to be, great, but that's not your job. Your job isn't to just like have them jump that far ahead of you, but you can give them enough opportunities. I think anybody should be able to, even people way, way below the poverty line, should be able to give their kids enough, even if it's just support, to do at least a little bit better than them. The structure just makes sense to me. Let me know what you think about that concept and all these others in the comments below. Share your parenting tips. I'm going to get back to movies. Essentially, this is going to be the last time I do anything like this on this channel, the Darren Van Damme channel, which I beg you to subscribe to. I need to hit 1,000 subscribers pretty quickly in order to make this a viable channel. But we're going to do fun stuff. It's not all going to be dry stuff like this. I'm gonna cook. We're gonna do some interesting activities. You're gonna meet people. It's gonna be fun. It is not going to be a vlog. It's gonna be something different. So go to that channel, check it out. I will have a video there sort of explaining a little bit more about what's to come, but I will keep making the other types of videos about movies as long as you keep watching them. But I really appreciate you watching this one, and you will see me next time.